And now, on AMTV, it's about time we took a look at the AMTV DVD Collection. Hi there guys, it's Martyn here, and welcome to the AMTV DVD Movie Collection. Now, this, funnily enough for me, is actually take two. I did start filming this some time ago, actually when I got my new camera, so about July time, but I just wasn't very happy with it, what I'd filmed, so I just wanted to try this again, really, and there's been a lot of changes. I've got rid of a lot of stuff, some stuff's changed around, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what I own here in the ATV library and give you my thoughts on each little bits and pieces. So we're going to start up here. Please excuse the light, it's just so you guys can see it. Everything is alphabetical, by the way, starting from, I go numerical first and then work my way down all the way to the letter Z right at the bottom there. Kicking things off, we have 4321, which is a 2010 film, like, you know, London gangs and stuff, very in the vein of the Hood trilogy, if you like. You've got 7 Days, which is a very bizarre foreign horror film. It's quite messed up, not for the faint of heart, certainly. You've got 10 Rillington Place, which is a really great film with a great cast, Richard Attenborough, John Hurt, amongst others. Really cool film. This DVD was actually quite hard to find. It might be a couple of quid more than you expect. I wonder if it's on Blu-ray, actually, but yeah, highly recommend watching that. You've got 12 Angry Men, probably one of the greatest films of all time, just for like its pacing, its characters. It's a really great movie. There's stage versions as well. If you haven't seen 12 Angry Men, you're doing yourself a disservice. You definitely need to see that one. You got 127 Hours, Danny Boyle film. I love Danny Boyle's work. I think he's a brilliant director, and this film is no exception to that. One of James Franco's best delivered roles, in my opinion. You've got 1917, which is a more recent film. Now, war films, I do enjoy a war movie. They're always grand in scale. Now, this was done by Sam Mendes, who directed James Bond, Skyfall, and Spectre, amongst others. This was an absolutely beautiful film to watch. Highly recommend you watch that. You've got 2012. Now, this is actually a DVD steelbook. A lot of people think steelbooks are just limited to Blu-ray. Surprisingly, they also release them on DVD as well. So that is of the film 2012, which ironically came out in 2009. I have a big guilty pleasure for this film. Yes, it's daft and a bit stupid, but at the time, it was quite good. For some reason, I own the London 2012 Olympic Games box set here from the BBC. Now, this is the opening ceremony, the closing ceremony, and a bunch of highlights. This must have been like £2 with any purchase at HMV or something, because I don't know why I would have this otherwise. But, you know, as a piece of history, it's neat to have. Now, this one was a good find. This is the Aardman Classics collection. Now, I got this from a car boot sale during lockdown, actually. It was only 50p. But this is a great little set. It's got so many of the Aardman shorts on here. So it's not got the full things like, you know, the Wallace and Gromit shorts, but everything they made, like commercials or little stories. There's a big old book in here. It's a really great set. So if you can find this, I'd highly recommend you pick that one up. Next, we have this, the Acid House. Now, this is a massively trippy film. This is based on the works of Irving Welsh, who, of course, is famous for doing Trainspotting, amongst other things. So if you like Trainspotting, you'll really like the Acid House. There's a lot of familiar names in there. Ewan Bremer is in this. Martin Clunes, Gemma Redgrave, Michelle Gomez also makes an appearance. So really wacky film. If you like Trainspotting, you'll like the Acid House. Now, this one's always interesting. This is Adult Life Skills, starring, as you can see, Jodie Whittaker, who is the 13th Doctor, of course. Now, this came out in 2016 and is a surprisingly good film. I'd highly actually recommend people check this out. It's an independent film. It's very funny. It's very niche, but I think it really shows off Jodie as an actress. Next, you have Adventures in Babysitting, which is a late 80s film. I love sort of late 80s, like romps or comedies, like family adventures, and this is no exception to that. I really love this movie. It's got a special place in my heart. And then this one, Aftermath, this has Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is a more recent role for him. And again, I don't get why people discredit Arnie as a bad actor. I really don't think he is, and this film really shows off his acting chops amongst some others he's done. So yeah, if you like Arnie and you want to see him act, like really act, then definitely check out Aftermath. And then you've got Air Force One with Harrison Ford. This is a classic film from the late 90s where Harrison Ford plays the president. It's all set on the presidential airplane. Really fun adventure. Really very 90s, but very fun nonetheless. Then you have Alien vs. Ninja, which was, again, a foreign film. Very wacky, very big action. This is about 2010. It's very bizarre, but I highly recommend it if you're into that sort of thing, the bizarre stuff. Then we've got the Alien Quadrilogy. Now, I know it's not all the Alien films, but this was given to me at a time when only the 4 existed. So that's Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection. I've only actually ever seen Alien. I haven't got around to the other 3, but I will eventually, one day. It's sat on my shelf long enough. American Graffiti. This is George Lucas's big film before Star Wars, and it's surprisingly a very good film all these years later. I actually highly recommend this one. Lots of great use of music, of 60s culture, early 60s culture. It's a really, really fun film. There was a sequel. I haven't seen it, but apparently it's not very good. It also has a young Ron Howard, of course, went on to direct many great films in it as well. And here you have Amy, which is the documentary on Amy Winehouse, who, of course, tragically passed at the age of 27. If you don't know much about Amy Winehouse as a person, I'd recommend watching this because it's so tragic what happened to it, and it is very powerful. So yeah, definitely recommend Amy. Then you have Another Hood. So like I mentioned at the beginning, you know those films that are like London Gangs and Street Talk and stuff, like the Hood trilogy? This is a massive pastiche of that, but I find this really funny. It's certainly not for everyone. There are some people who will not like this film, but for me at the time when it came out, I was about 15, I loved this, and it's still got like a special place to me. Now we have this, Apollo 13, definitely one of the best films of the 90s, and there you go, a Ron Howard film. This tells the story of the Apollo 13 space mission, which of course went horribly wrong, and I won't reveal any more for anyone who doesn't know it, but if you haven't seen Apollo 13, please, please, please go and watch it. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie. Then you have Arrival. Now, this got a lot of mixed reception. I actually really liked Arrival. It's got a strong cast. You've got Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner and Forrest Whitaker. It's a very slow-paced film, so you've got to give it some time, but I really, really like this one, and I think some of you guys will too, if you give it the chance, of course. Then you have Assault on Precinct 13, which is a John Carpenter film. Really cool film from the late 70s. I know they've remade it, but stick with the original. Really, really cool. Attack the Block. Now, this has Jodie Whittaker in it again, but it also has John Boyega, who, of course, then went on to be Finn in Star Wars. This is a really cool film. It was about 2011, I think this came out, and I really enjoyed it. It's very quirky, aliens on that whole London street gang stuff. I really like the London street gang stuff, as you can tell. Now you have Avatar. This is the extended collector's edition. There's 3 discs on DVD, and of course, still, this is the... No, actually, it's not highest grossing, is it? Is Endgame the highest grossing? This was the highest grossing film of all time for many years. Avatar, in my mind, it's just okay. It's not as good as everyone made it out to be, but it's a competent enough film, in my opinion. Now, you've got some horror. You have The Babadook, which is an Australian horror film, I believe. And this one, as horrors go, modern horrors don't tend to scare me that much. I lose a lot of the scare factor, but this one actually surprised me. This is a really solid film. So yeah, horror fans, get The Babadook, check it out. Then you have Baby Driver. Great use of music in this, of course, as everyone talks about. There was talks, I think they're going to do a sequel, but I don't know how that would work. But yeah, awesome film, Baby Driver. Another DVD steelbook. This is the 4-disc Ultimate Edition of Back to the Future. So you've got the 3 films in the trilogy and a bonus disc. It absolutely packed with special features on here. Yes, I know it's on Blu-ray and 4K and all that stuff, but for me, a DVD version of the 3 films will do just fine. Now, this is a weird one. This is Bag Boy Lover Boy. This came out about 2014. It's a very strange, independent horror film about a guy who wants to learn how to be a photographer, but then things go awry. It's very weird, that's all I'll say. It's a very strange, bizarre film. Some of you might not like it, but, you know, it's worth a watch, just for morbid curiosity's sake. Batteries Not Included. This is a really cute film from the late 80s. I won't say much more on it because I haven't seen it in years and I don't want to get any plot wrong or anything, but yeah, highly recommend this. It's a great family film. Now, Mr. Bean's Holiday, the better of the Bean movies in my opinion. I don't own the first Bean movie anymore, but this one, really solid film. Really enjoy that one. Now, we have some Beatles stuff. We have 8 Days a Week, The Touring Years, which was also made by Ron Howard. This is basically a documentary looking at when they toured, because of course they didn't tour all the way through their 8 years or whatever they were together. They only really toured from 1962 to 1966. So really great. It's 2 discs as well. Great to have that in the collection. And we also have Be Kind Rewind. Now, I love this film because obviously it's digging on VHS culture, that thing, you know, Blockbuster, rental tapes and stuff. Really cute film, so yeah, recommend Be Kind Rewind. Then we move on to the other side of the shelf, as it were, and what have we got to kick off? We have this, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. This is a recent Tom Hanks film where he plays Mr. Rogers, the famous American kids host. Really beautiful film. I mean, yes, I guess Americans will connect to it more because they know Mr. Rogers more, but this is still, in my opinion, a very beautiful story, and it's definitely worth a watch. Tom Hanks is great, as always. Then you have more horror, The Bellco Experiment. This is messed up. Very cool horror, but very messed up. Highly recommend that one. I think you can get that for really cheap now as well, so it's not too inexpensive. Then you have Big Trouble in Little China. Really cool John Carpenter film from the 80s. I know this has had I think a Blu-ray steelbook recently, but yeah, highly recommend this one. That one is really, really, really cool. Some more horror. This is more horror comedy. This is Black Sheep. Zombie Sheep. That's all I'll say about that one. Really messed up, but really funny at the same time. Then you have this one, Blinded by the Light. This is the film which uses Bruce Springsteen's music to tell a story. And yeah, it's a very powerful film, very enlightening film. I have that Sony Walkman, of course. But yeah, highly recommend that one. It's not as good as some of the other music, doc dramas we've had, but it's still good. Back to some classic horror, we have The Blob from 1958. Now, this was a pain to get. This was actually quite expensive. I don't know if it's ever come down in price, but it's nice to own the original Blob. I don't own the 80s version of The Blob. I don't even think that has a DVD release yet in this country. It might do now, but it certainly didn't when I picked this up. But yeah, classic 50s. Steve McQueen's brilliant if you want to see him in an early role before, like, The Great Escape and all that. Now, this one I watched recently, The Boat That Rocks. This is a really funny and great story about pirate radio here in the UK. Admittedly, I hadn't seen this for years and really wanted to, and now I'm glad I have. It's such a funny British movie. Recommend that one. And of course, this one's getting a sequel soon. It's Borat with Sacha Baron Cohen, probably one of his most infamous characters. And yeah, Borat, I enjoy Borat. I mean, obviously more as a kid when it's a bit more edgy. I wonder if I'd watch it now, if I'd still find it funny. But I am excited to check out the sequel, which of course is coming out near the US election. How very apt. And then you have this, Borg versus McEnroe. Now, this tells of the rivalry between, well, Borg and McEnroe, who are two tennis players who faced off in 1980 Wimbledon. And for someone who likes my sport dramas, I really like this. Again, I'd highly recommend Borg versus McEnroe. It's not the best sports movie ever. It's not on the levels of, like, I don't know, I, Tonya or Eddie the Eagle for me, but this is still a really fun film, so recommend that one. Now you have Boyhood. Now, Boyhood is directed by Richard Linklater, who directed the Before trilogy, which we will get onto in a later segment. But this film was filmed over 12 years, from 2002 to 2014. This kid, it's the same kid they film him, I think it's from the age of 6 till 18. And it's a very long film, but I mean, these 5-star reviews big it up, and it's true. It is so worth the watch. It's very well made, and it's just a brilliant movie. It's a brilliant concept, and I always love Richard Linklater for trying these more abstract things. So yeah, Boyhood is a must recommend from me. Then you've got Brighton Rock, which is a film from the late 40s, but it's got Richard Attenborough in it, and it's also got William Hartnell, pre-First Doctor, and it's actually really weird to see Bill Hartnell in a role other than Doctor Who, just because I'm so used to it. But yeah, really classic British film. Bubba Hotep. This film is just odd. Like, this film's very bizarre. You've got a guy you've got Elvis and this guy who believes he's John F. Kennedy, even though he's black. It's a very weird movie, but a lot of fun. Recommend at least try Bubba Hotep. Then you've got The Bucket List, featuring two greats of cinema, Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman. Just two guys who want to tick things off their bucket list. Really heartwarming film. I saw it when it came out. I was probably a bit young, but I really enjoyed it, and I enjoy it now. It's really, really good fun. Then you have The Butler, really great film. Forrest Whitaker as the butler. I can't remember his name, which is really bad, but it is about the butler who served many generations in the White House. And again, brilliant film. Highly recommend that one. Now you've got some independent horror, Carnival of Souls. Now this came out in the 60s, and this is one of those public domain films. There's so many releases of this. I've got this one from Elstree Hill Entertainment, and yeah, it's actually a really eerie horror film. It doesn't rely so much on jump scares. I'd actually recommend checking out, if you're going for just certain 60s horror, check out Carnival of Souls. It's something a bit different. Now you've got Casino Royale. This is, of course, not the Daniel Craig one. This is from 1967. This is the comedy skit version, if you like, of the James Bond series, featuring Peter Sellers and David Niven. It's very much a product of its time. It's quite dated, but if you're a James Bond completionist and you want to see everything they put out, not just the main canon stuff, then Casino Royale is there for you. It's dead cheap to come across. Then you have Catch Me If You Can, great film with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. Highly recommend that one. One of my favourite films of all time now, Chicken Run. I know they're getting the sequel. Bit annoyed they're not getting the two leads back to voice their characters. Hopefully they change that. But this is just pure joy in a film. Always makes me laugh, infinitely quotable, infinitely rewatchable. Chicken Run, yeah, definitely in my top 10 films of all time, and it should be in yours too. Now we've got the Child's Play series. As you can see here, they make up about, I think it's 8 films. So you've got the original Child's Play from the late 80s, great film. You've got Child's Play 2, not as good, but, you know, decent enough. Then you've got Child's Play 3, which I admit I thought was like the weak link in the series at that point. Then you've got Bride of Chucky, where they sort of went into the more horror comedy territory, and you've got Jennifer Tilly as the bride. It's still fun, but yeah, it's very much more horror comedy now. Then you had Seed of Chucky, where they have a child. Again, horror comedy. This was about 2004. Then they went back to a bit more straight horror with Curse of Chucky, which I think was 2013. And then they went even more with that with Cult of Chucky in 2017. Really messed up film. And then they went for the reboot in 2019 with Child's Play. Just Child's Play. And I watched this, and yeah, it's decent. It's not the worst horror film I've ever seen. It's certainly not the best. And it's just a pretty standard reboot. I'm kind of gutted they replaced Brad Dourif, who'd always voiced Chucky, for Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill's great, but whenever he does this creepy thing, I just always hear his version of the Joker. So not a bad reboot, but not the best reboot ever made either. Then you've got Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, one of the, well, most classic films ever. A lot of people actually don't know the script for the movie adaptation was adapted by Roald Dahl, of all people, would you believe? And it was an Ian Fleming novel, the James Bond author. Great film, though. And then it seems like we have another steelbook. We have, yes, Cloverfield. This was such a big, I remember when this came out, this was such a big deal. Like, there was so much mystery around it. It was that found footage style. And a really great film. I haven't seen the sequels. I probably should, because I hear good things about them. You got Commando, a classic 80s Arnold Schwarzenegger action film. Just a lot of fun. Don't take it too serious, but I'd highly recommend Commando, definitely. Then you've got Creed, which is the continuation of the Rocky series. So you've got Sylvester Stallone still playing Rocky, but the main focus is now on Apollo Creed's son. And I don't own the sequel yet on DVD, and I wonder if they're going to make more, like, you know, a 3, 4, etc. But yeah, I enjoyed Creed for what it was worth. Then you have Creep, which is just a very weird horror film from the mid-2000s. Basically, the premise is someone falls asleep in the London Underground, then it closes, and hilarity ensues. So yeah, and very weird. Crocodile, very low budget. It's from the same director as the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but this was when CGI was starting to become a thing, and it's just a bit dated now, not the best film, but it has a gag here and there. And then moving towards the end of the shelf, you have Daddy Daycare. I don't usually go for these sort of really young orientated family films, but I remember seeing this when I was a kid, and I really enjoyed it, and I think it's one of those few Eddie Murphy family movies that still really holds up, so that's why I still have it. Then you've got The Darkest Dawn. Now, this is actually made by my friend, Drew Casson. Yeah, he basically made his own film independently. It's really cool. It's a very cool film. You can buy it in HMV, of all places, but yeah, it's a really, really cool film. So go and support Drew. Please go and check out his film, The Darkest Dawn, and all his other work, of course. I think he's actually doing something for Netflix now, which is really awesome. And then you have Darkest Hour, which, of course, was a winner for Best Actor for Gary Oldman. This tells the story of how Churchill became Prime Minister during World War II, and yeah, his performance is great, and definitely one people should watch. So this went on way longer than I anticipated, but that is just the top row of things, going from the numbers all the way up until the start of the letter D. So I will pause it there. We will do more installments covering probably row by row based on how long this has gone on for, all the way down this shelf. And there are other things as well I can show you around the collection. I know some people, if you're a long-time viewer and you used to watch the DVD haul, which was on in 2017 and 18, you may be thinking, there's some stuff that's not here. And, well, over the years, I've had to get rid of a fair chunk of stuff, both for financial and just practical reasons. Like, you know, I can't have endless space, so there's always a reason, but this is what I guess consider the cream of the crop that should stick around. But thank you very much for watching this first part of the AMTV DVD collection. I hope you come back for part 2, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and comment down below, out of what we looked at, any films that you really enjoyed, or any favourites in your collection, or any things that you want to see in this collection. We'll have a find out, but leave a like, leave your comments, please subscribe to the channel if you're brand new, and until the next one, I'll see you guys next time. This program has been brought to you in part by our producer and director patrons. With your support, you help keep AMTV running and the programs coming to your screens. Thank you. And that does bring us to the end of another evening here on AMTV. We hope you enjoyed the program, and we hope to see you next time. Good night.